Okay, so good morning, everyone. To those of you who don't know me or watching the recording, I'm Val, and my business is called Valerie Alignment. Today, we're going to talk about behaviors that are keeping us stuck repeating the same loops in life and preventing us from moving forward. Our first topic for today's conversation is going to be venting, which is a really tricky one because it's not that easy to always identify when are we sharing our experience with people and connecting, and when are we venting chronically and compulsively. Two different things with completely different effects. And just to explain why is it so important and why are we even talking about it, what is my perspective on it and where am I coming from, is basically I've been a therapist for 14 years. I've practiced different modalities. I've been working with people for a very long time. And in the last years, I've been mainly focusing on emotional and energetic therapy, as well as mentoring. And I just see what are the themes that keep repeating themselves again and again and again. So whatever I'm bringing to you here today, it's basically the result of that. It's the themes that I see again and again that are harming people, suppressing people, and keeping people repeating the same self-harming loops. Now, venting, why am I saying that it's so tricky? Because it's something that if we just look at it from the surface level, it should be beneficial, right? If there's a lot of emotion that's accumulating there, inside in our body or on our mind, and we can't really respond properly because there's just too much. If that's the container and we have that much stored in there, more than we can handle, blowing off steam should be a good thing. And I think it's something that's normal for most people, unless you're somebody who's used to suppressing, pushing down, and then you get sick. It's one of those things that we tend to do with our friends, right? There's nothing wrong about that. And I just want to bring in a bit of explanation when it comes to terminology, because it's not always easy to identify what are we doing. Are we compulsively venting? Are we sharing our experience and connecting? Or are we gossiping? What are we even doing? So the way I see it from my perspective is it has to do with the energy and the intention of it. Sharing and connecting with another human, with another person, there's an element of co-creation there. So the energies are moving towards each other and they create a mutual experience. And that's what we usually want in our friendships. Obviously, just like anything else, there's never stasis in life. Like in the body, we have homeostasis. And please tell me if you have questions about it, just write a comment. I will see it on the screen and I will comment later. But stasis is that state of harmony and balance, basically. We want to see that in relationships as well, but just like in the body, in the process of homeostasis, we have coming in and out. It's never a straight line. It's never static. The same thing happens in dynamics and relationships with other people. It's never the same. It's never a straight line. It's more of a, sometimes one person will take more and the other one will give more, and sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes one person talks more and they work through stuff and the other one is listening more. That's normal. The problem starts when the energy shifts and it's not the baseline is not co-creation. It's one person always taking for themselves and the other person is giving always. What did I do here with my hands? Taking and giving. When I'm talking about taking and giving, I'm talking about taking attention and giving attention. And you can recognize a relationship when that is the baseline. What is the difference between sharing, compulsive venting, and gossiping? Gossiping is a third thing, and that means when you're talking, even you can talk about even somebody else. It's normal, we all do that. But when the intention is to pass it on, move it forward, like if you're listening to somebody else and now you're taking that information and you're going and talking about it as a third party, but now you're sharing it with a fourth party, that's gossiping. If just your friend comes to you to share about their mom, their partner, their job, whatever, that is not gossip. That's sharing, or, as we said, venting. Now, before I keep going, I'll take a second and I want to ask you, I will ask you at the end again, but I will ask you right now, can you identify anything or anyone in your lives that are doing this to you? That the energy between you, the dynamics between you, is that they always take your attention and you always give your attention. An even harder question would be, can you self-reflect and can you see where you're doing it to someone else when you're constantly hijacking the conversation and they are always the listener? I'll take a second and I will let you comment. And let's see if you can identify anything like that in your life. Yes, yes. Okay, so I can say, well, understanding that you're doing it yourself is a wonderful thing, because self-awareness and being self-reflective is a key point. And you will see in this talk today, why is it so important, especially not just in moving forward in life for yourself, but especially, I think you saw that we're going to address relationships with our therapists as well. And without self-reflection, when we're in a relationship or dynamics, when one of the person has more authority, whether it's a practitioner or our boss at work, or our parent, somebody who's not equal to us, being self-reflective is the only thing that allows us to keep our sovereignty. So that's wonderful. Okay, let's see. Why is it so important? Why does it even happen? So I wanted to talk, first of all, address the emotions behind it. When we're thinking about the emotion that drives us to that behavior, what happens? When are we doing that? Usually, we have that need to vent or blow off steam when, as we said before, when we have more in the container that we can handle. Now, how do we feel when we have more? What is the emotion that's there? Think about it when you're calling your friend and you're like, oh my God, I can't take it anymore. This person, this job, this whatever situation, when that is happening, how do you feel inside? Can you share with me? Stress, anger, frustration, really uncomfortable emotions, right? Urgency, impulsiveness. I can so relate to the impulsiveness. Oh my God. If you know anything about human design, MG, manifesting generator, it's like the most urgency is our theme. Shame, fear, feeling like a victim. Yeah. So all of these emotions are really uncomfortable. We would call them negative, right? I know that from a more spiritual perspective, people talk a lot about oneness, but we always need to remember that on this plane, on this earth, we are not in oneness. We're in duality. So there is black and white and there is right or wrong. It can be absolutely subjective, but in our subjective experience, those are negative emotions that are making us feel uncomfortable. And when we have more of that emotion than we can hold in our container, the container is our nervous system, our psyche. We can't deal with that much. We need to pour some out. And usually we would use another person to pour that into them. Now, why can it be harmful then? Can you think of any other activity that people do? How would you call it when you feel too much of something and then you run away to do a behavior that is not serving you? How would you call that in one word? Addiction, exactly. That's an addiction. Now, what is an addiction? An addiction is when you need to, you are pushing towards change. You have emotions in you that are signifying to you that you are uncomfortable in the situation that you're in, whether you're uncomfortable in the relationship that you're in. It can be a relationship inside your family, with your family dynamics inside, with one of your parents or siblings. It can be your romantic relationship with your partner. It can be in a friendship. It can be at your workplace. All of them are eventually relationships, right? Because even if it's a situation or a place, you are never uncomfortable with a place by itself. You are uncomfortable with your relationship to that place or your relationship to that environment, to that person, to whatever is happening in that scenario. It's always about a relationship. You have those emotions that are telling you you're not comfortable here. Move, change, do something about that. But the problem is that when instead of dealing with the situation, you're running away from it, like you're pouring that energy out, what happens is that that negative emotion is creating potency. It creates momentum. It creates momentum to push the energy up and to push you away from that experience. Now, what happens when instead of creating that shift, what you do is you just go and call that friend or call someone else and you talk to them about it day after day after day after day. You're losing that momentum. You're losing that energy, that potent energy that is meant to push you and shift the situation. So now the energy rises and you just push it back down. And what it creates for you is you become comfortable again in the same situation that creates that loop. You pour that energy down, you're losing the momentum, and now you stay. You stay in the same situation. And that's a lot of the times how people stay in that job that harms you, in that relationship where abusive relationship or something that's not working there for you, and it basically kills that opportunity to live your true authentic self, because your authentic self is telling you that is not for you. Move, do something, leave that relationship, break that connection, change your job, but you're just wasting that momentum. Does it make sense to everyone? Can you see visually what happens in that dynamics and why is it an addiction? You get addicted to that cycle of calming yourself down, of regulating yourself. That's actually why so many people are talking about it. When we have that conversation about nervous system regulation, that is the dark side of nervous system regulation. Yes, exactly. We enjoy what we shouldn't. Exactly. That's the negative side of this. Because if you keep regulating, you come back, but you don't do anything about it because now you're just passive. It's not the same as being regulated and you have the ability to think and act when you're basically calming yourself down by an addictive behavior. And then you don't shift anything, you don't move, you just keep repeating the same loop, and you can get stuck there for years. I'm telling you, I know people that have been there their entire life. I have a family member that's been repeating the same loop for 50 years now. Nothing is changing just because that person is stuck in venting. They would talk to anyone who would listen, but they're not shifting anything. And we don't want to end up in that place. That's why, does it make sense to you guys why I'm saying that, like, conversations and talking, it should be such a mundane thing, but then can you see how it can keep a person stuck in a loop? And it's not that obvious. It's not like people that drink or abuse drugs or things like that. It's not that obvious. I mean, it's just chatting, right? But then you can see how it can completely suppress the urgency and the need to make a change. Does it make sense to everyone? Yes, Kate. The reflection here is so important. The loop. Guys, I want you to take a second and think about it for yourself. Where do you see that you're doing it the most? In relationships? In your workplace? With your family members? With your friends? Or you're not doing that? It's not something that's a big pattern in your life, but maybe it's a pattern that you're identifying in your clients, since many of your practitioners. That's something that I also wanted to support you with, and to see if you are identifying it as a theme with your clients. While you're thinking about it and writing, I just wanted to add a bit more on that. When we're saying that it's harmful, why else is it harmful? It's not just because we don't change. Other things that are a big component in these dynamics is that when we're venting and compulsively pouring that energy into someone else, there's a person on the other side, the recipient of that. And it can really harm our relationship with that other person, right? Have you ever been on the other side? Do you know how it's like when you have a friend that calls you every day or texts you those long messages and constantly repeating the same thing over and over again, and you're sitting there, you're reading it, you're watching it, and you're like, should I say something? Should I just listen? What should I do in this situation? Am I being a good friend when I'm just a listener? Am I being a good friend when I'm helping them shift this situation? It puts the other person in a very uncomfortable situation, right? Have you ever been on the other side? Do you know how it's like? This situation brings us to a whole other thing, when it comes to our friendships and connections, because there's a thing there in the background, which is like an unspoken contract between us and our friends. Each dynamics is playing out that contract, right? When you come together with another person, there's always this unspoken contract of who gives what, who takes what, and what is the harmony of that relationship. When we get to a point when basically our addiction is not a thing, our addiction is to put that energy onto someone else. We basically drag them into our addiction, and now they're subjected to it, and they don't know always what to do about it. How do we not break the relationship contract? Because those things are usually not discussed, disclosed, or clear when people are coming together in that scenario of a friendship. It's very subtle, but it can cause a lot of disrupt, a lot of discomfort, and a lot of confusion in friendships. Because when you're on the other side, you're not sure what to do about this situation. And this is where we are also saying that your friends can't help you, your friends can't save you. When you're doing that, and your thought behind it is that it will help you shift and change, actually, your friends can't do that because they don't know if it's a part of the contract or not. And also, there's usually this feeling about it that if you say too much, if you push too much, you're not being an attentive friend. You're not being an active listener. But where do we draw the line between enabling someone and actually assisting them versus just hearing them when they need us to be on the other side? Can you relate to that? Do you know how it's like to be on the other side? And how does it feel to you? Have you ever experienced that discomfort of being forced into constantly listening and not sure whether you're supposed to give something, give advice, or just attention, or how long are you supposed to do it for? Whoops, open the screen. Now, where can it also be really problematic? When that person is a friend, there's no hierarchy and there's no power battle. But what happens if that person is your therapist? If you do know that you're going through something in your life right now, you're struggling with something, and you already have a counselor, a psychologist, somebody you speak to who's a professional, and their job is to help you through things, whether you already have them or you got somebody just because you're going through that hardship right now. How can you tell if they're enabling this cycle of venting, or are they actually helpful with whatever you're dealing with? That is a very tricky situation, because when you have a therapist, a counselor, a psychologist, you trust them because they are the source of knowledge, right? They're trained. They are an authority on that matter when it comes to emotional, mental, psyche things. They're trained in that. Also, I'm breathing. Yes, 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 Christian. Of course, it matters. Now, with psychology, it's basically, the problem is that with psychology, that's what psychology is all about. It's all in the mind and the talking. So we kind of get stuck in the situation of talking about something again and again and again, but does it lead us to change? It's not a clear yes or no. Every situation needs to be evaluated individually. Can we shift without talking? In most cases, we can't. From what I saw, and those of you who know me, you know that I've been doing a lot of body work for many years. I'm doing mainly energetic therapy now, but because our brain is our processor, if we don't verbalize things and it clicks in the brain, we can't actually shift it too much. But what I am saying there is that the brain is not the only thing. The brain is the processor, but we also have other components. If we have a somatic experience in our body and that trauma or that hardship, that situation that we're dealing with is stuck in our physical body, we would want a shift that includes the body as well as talking about it. If we have an experience that because our processing is more emotional than kinesthetic, and then we will want a combo that includes the energetic side of things and talking. That's usually what I do in my sessions when we access the energetic body. It can be physical and energetic. Yeah, it depends on your processing mechanism. We're always looking at that. That's one of the basic things that I'm doing, identifying which are your processing mechanisms. We do that, whether it's physical, energetic, but then we have to talk about it because that's how things land. That's how it clicks in the brain, and that's how breakthroughs happen. That's what you would usually see with any coach, mentor that they're talking to because they want things to click. But we can't isolate that. Now, how do you actually understand whether your practitioner is just keeping you stuck in the loop, is only looking at tangible results? How many sessions did you have? Are you actually moving forward, or are you still repeating the same thing? This is where self-reflection is so important. And we have to stay in our power and be sovereign in our decision-making to be able to stop and evaluate the situation. I've seen it so many times when people keep seeing the same counselor, the same practitioner, and they talk about the same thing. So they get to vent, they lower that energy that's just pushing from inside and trying to push them out. They vent to their psychologist, they come back down, and then at the end of the session, their therapist says, "See you next week." And it keeps on going and going and going. So you need to decide for yourself, where do you draw the line? Can you feel how different it is when the contract is with a friend who's equal to you, and when it's a figure of authority, somebody who's supposed to know how to work through these things? This subject takes us back to the conversation with friends. And why can't your friends help you move through things? They can be supportive, they can listen to you, but why can't they help you get to that breakthrough? When you have a practitioner that you literally hired to help you shift something, they have your permission. They are actually obligated to help you shift. That's what they're hired for. Even if it feels uncomfortable, even if you don't like what they're saying, even if it's something that is so outside of your scope of norm, what you would usually expect from a helpful situation, a scenario, like something that you would never get from a friend. You would never do it yourself for yourself in order to shift. it can feel really uncomfortable in many different ways, whether it's hearing the brutal truth, whether it's being forced to feel your emotions. It can still obviously be done in the right therapeutic context, right? So you should still always feel safe. Safety has to be created there. But you would still gently be pushed towards shifting that dynamic. You would be forced gently to look at yourself realistically. This is the whole essence of breakthrough, right? Something that's your blind spot that you're unaware of, and then you become aware of when there's just, you can't deny it. That's the job of your practitioner. Those of you who have done sessions or mentoring with me before, you saw how it feels when it's done in full alignment with how you're operating, with your higher self, when the higher self is embodied and comes down to be anchored in your being. It happens naturally. But if you chat to your friend, they can't do that for you. Again, because of the dynamics that we talked about, that contract, that invisible, unspoken of contract. I hope it makes sense to everyone. Your friend does not have that authority that is needed in the most loving and connected way, but they cannot lead that. Because think about it, what happens if your friend, you're calling your friend, you're texting your friend, but you're basically playing out that scenario because you're addicted to it. You have a need for it, but they're pushing you to move past it. They're pushing you. They're constantly telling you, are you noticing that you keep on talking about that relationship? I mean, come on, be done with that. Just, you see that you need to leave, right? Or they're telling you, you see that this workplace is harmful for you. You have to quit. When it's an addiction to vent, when you're doing that to self-soothe, what will happen is that you will get angry with that friend. You will get angry with them, just like if you're a smoker, yeah, and your friend is telling you, you know that it's not healthy for you, you need to stop smoking. What happens? Will you stop smoking, or will you start hating that friend? Because they're that person that keeps on pushing you. You don't want that. When you have an addiction, you don't want that. When we're talking about friends, we also have two scenarios there, yeah? So it's not just in romantic relationships that we have trauma bonds. We also have that in friendships. In any relationship, it can happen. It can happen with family, at work, with anyone. The common scenario when it comes to us venting to our friends and friends in general is more of a healthy situation when we are equals, and then when this situation happens and we get stuck in a loop and we constantly pour that onto another person, they're just getting confused and lost and what to do about that. Should I listen? Should I respond? Should I help them pass through that or not? That's the common. The less common, actually, I'm not sure. I think, Mel, you'll probably know better than me. What is the statistics on that? Actually, I think I saw it's more like 50-50 with secure attachment versus anxious avoidant. Christy, you would know as well. I think it's 50-50, right? Secure versus one of the unsecure attachments. There are a few. It's not just anxious avoidant. There's like a mix of both. So yeah, let's just say that it's 50-50. But there's that one situation when the relationship is healthy. Another scenario is when our friend, the one that we're talking to, is a trauma bond. And especially people that get stuck in this loop of compulsive venting, they would do that to anyone, yeah, any person who would listen to them, they would repeat the same story because they're trying to suppress that edge. And then you can see when you're talking to other people, you can see who's that person who just listened to you once and who is that person who's like, who targets you. In that dynamic, you can see that the trauma bond happens when a person who has the need to save someone, the savior complex, they are targeting people who are stuck in being in victim mode. Because when we vent like that, we're basically reliving that victim mode again and again and again. We're keeping ourselves there chronically, constantly. And then we're a really good match energetically, emotionally, mentally, psychologically to a person who wants us to stay there. So if we talked about the scenario with a therapist that wants us to stay there because then they have a regular client that keeps coming back every week, what happens with in that friendship scenario when it's a trauma bond, a toxic relationship, is that they want us to stay the victim because they get to be the savior. Why is that harmful? Because it still doesn't lead us to a solution. The same thing that we said at the start, that we have that potent energy that rises within us, that is meant to push us out of this uncomfortable situation and help us move forward, to do that really uncomfortable thing, that uncomfortable conversation, that confrontation that a lot of people avoid, or that action that can be so scary, whether it's moving out, getting a divorce, leaving a job and be fearful for your finances. That relationship, that trauma bond can keep you there as well. That person will have a full interest of keeping you there, and you see how it fuels them. They're checking on you every second and they're like, tell me more, tell me more. And they create that bubble for you, that bubble that keeps you there. It's basically like that relationship with a drug addict and a drug dealer. Can you see the connection? Can you see how it would be the same? I want to give you a minute to self-reflect there, because that's our main, if not only, resolution and cure for that situation. If you have any questions and you want me to elaborate on that, you can also drop them in the chat. I'll have a look at my notes. I'll see if there's anything there that I'm missing, because there are a lot of very important things to say on that subject. Another thing that I have to say about that, the difference between those two relationships, the healthy and the toxic one, is when it comes to the energy. Is it a collaborative energy? Is it co-creation? Are we coming into the space to share our experiences? Are we pouring our energies into the relationship, our intention, our attention, our love, our connection, and we're creating a mutual experience? Or is it always one person puts their energy in and the other one is just hit by it, subjected to it? Or is it option number 3, the toxic one? When we feed off each other, where the savior is feeding off the victim, but both of them want it that way, and there's no shift. It's harmful either way. Because even in the healthiest relationship, when we do this unhealthy behavior, that's how we harm the friendship. So at some point, when we do that to a friend in a healthy scenario, and we constantly repeat that, they will either say to us at some point, change it, enough, let's get some help. If you have that ability to self-reflect and you have that ability to recognize, yes, actually I've been stuck and I need to change, you will use the support to do that. But if it turned into a loop, into an addiction, you won't want to do that. You would get angry at that friend and see them as a bad friend. You will push them away. It happens actually a lot with practitioners as well. People that are dealing with emotional and mental things, especially like psychologists, psychotherapists, they see that a lot, that they can go somewhere a bit too fast and the person just snaps and they never come back. When a person wants to be stuck in victim mode, which is where we're venting from, when the person wants to stay there, they can easily just stop. They will come up with an excuse why they don't want to continue the sessions. Yeah. But that can break a healthy relationship. Or another situation that can happen is that this other person will just get tired of listening. They will get tired and they will just move away. They won't want to be in that place because they feel that it's not healthy. It's just there's no co-creation there. There's no collaboration. There's no pouring into something mutual. They will just leave. And that's not ideal, right? Because usually if you already have that friend that you talk to the most, they're probably the closest one, your most empathetic friend, your most caring and loving friend. So that's how you can sabotage it. Do you have any questions, guys? Do you have anything that you want to drop in the chat before I move forward? Because I want to move to solutions. Beautiful. We'll have a Q&A after, yeah? We'll have a Q&A soon. I want to talk solutions a bit. And I keep checking my notes because I want to make sure I don't leave anything out because there's just so much to say. You see that there's a lot to say about that, something that should be so mundane. Okay, so solutions. Every solution, no matter what we do, begins with our ownership of our own behaviors, our own emotional state, our sovereign expression in this life. It's extremely important if we want to use that energy to create shifts in our life, if we want to make sure we're not trapped in trauma bonds, relationships, friendships, work, anything like that, any scenario. And especially in those situations when there's hierarchy involved. We want to know how to identify where we are in a therapeutic session and the practitioner is helping us shift, or they're crossing boundaries. Or it's the other situation. Are they helping us shift in a container of safety, or are they enabling us to stay looping? So there are variations in both scenarios. We don't want to be pushed too fast, but we also don't want to be stuck repeating the same loop in our lives again and again and again, which can be in the same situation, or we maybe move through one situation and now we repeat that again with another person or another situation. Yeah. So self-awareness and reflection. Again, to all of you that are in my containers, mentorship, had sessions with me, you know that the tangible results is my number one. We always want to see how our life is shifting for the better constantly. So this is where I know that the people that I'm talking to, you all have the understanding why should we be doing that every now and then, to stop and reflect on the results of our life. What are we creating? If we look at ourselves and we look back, we can take a segment of time, let's say 3 months. In the last 3 months, what have I been doing? What are my behaviors? And what have they led me to? I was in this unhealthy relationship. Am I still in it? Now, if I'm still in it, then whatever I've been doing does not work. And then let's break it down. What have I been doing? Was I venting about the same thing over and over again? With my friends, with my practitioner? Or have I been doing something that actually led me towards change? Did I leave this job? Did I create a plan for myself to get out of a situation? It's not necessarily something that has to happen that's drastic straight away, but are you putting a structure and a plan in place that will allow you to shift the situation in a positive way? Also, whenever we're talking about being stuck in a cycle, being stuck in a loop, what we want to do is to withdraw our energy from that scenario, that behavior that we keep on reenacting, take it back, and then pour it into something else. I will give you an analogy. It's not an analogy, it's an explanation of the same thing, but I see it happening in a different setting. I find myself explain that a lot in sessions, why I shifted from doing trauma release, and now I'm focusing on anchoring your highest version, your highest self into the body. When we're trying to break something, pull something out, remove something forcefully, there's a lot of struggle there. And those behaviors and actions that are initiated by our pain body would really they would fight for their survival like a parasite. They will try to come back in a different form, to disguise themselves, come back twice, 3 times as harder as before. But when we view ourselves and our boundaries as a container, and we just feel it from the inside out with all that goodness that's our authentic self, our highest version, our true expression, all of these things, they just fall out. There's no more room for them. There's no more space for them. Does it make sense? Feeling something in with goodness and something that's authentic and true and harmonious, it creates a situation where we don't have the need for compensation patterns, for protection mechanisms, for all of these other things that are there to keep us safe, because there's nothing safer than being our true embodied self. So in those two situations, what I'm talking about is, are we using our energy towards something that's forceful, fighting, trying to break something? Are we trying to break a pattern? Are we trying to fight against something, a relationship or a situation? Or are we pouring that energy into something that is lighting us up? It's so beautiful, it's so fulfilling, that we just don't have any more space left for toxic relationships or a job that doesn't see our value, or even a parent that is a negative influence in our lives. I just want to say those two things again. When we talk about solutions, how can we break the loop? Number one, taking ownership and being self-reflective. We want to reflect on the outcomes of our behaviors and act accordingly. And number two, we want to pour our energy into the things that fulfill us, that we love, and that moves us forward towards where we want to move by choice. So, for instance, if what we're constantly talking about and circulating is a relationship that keeps hurting us, if we take a step back and we create an image for ourselves, our self-image of how we show up in a relationship and what does that relationship, romantic relationship, brings into our lives. How does it look like? How does it look like for us? When we have that and we start to create that, we start working on ourselves and we start growing that part of us, that relationship, we don't need to fight against it. It will just fall off. When we think about our ideal self-expression in our creation in life, how do we show up when, as creative beings, we create and it fulfills us so much? We're in full service of others, but it keeps pouring back into us. When we work on that and we take little steps towards that, even through a hobby or maybe little action steps, maybe we start a side hustle or something like that, but we do something that we love, the discord between that and that workplace will be so big that at some point we will naturally flow out of there. And in a lot of cases, maybe some of you had those experiences, you don't even need to leave, you don't even need to resign. They will fire you themselves with a really nice goodbye package or something like that. Life will take care of it. What you're responsible for is, where do you direct your energy towards? I hope it makes sense to everyone. And I'm about to start the Q&A, so I will give you a moment to think about these things. Self-reflect, maybe write down a few things. I'll go over the notes again. And then we'll start the Q&A. I'll read to you a few of my notes about that, about solutions. So as we said, small action steps. We want to make small actions towards what we want and away from what we don't want. Another thing is communicate. When we're talking about venting, constantly venting to our friends, especially if it's one or two people, this is where you did the self-reflection. You realize that that's what's been happening. You're stuck in that addiction loop. communicate. Call your friend, meet up with that friend and say, have I been doing that? How are you feeling about that? Where did I leave you in that? And maybe also ask them, did you ever give me advice that I didn't hear? Because I was stuck in myself so much, in my own emotions, that I didn't hear you. And let them express it, regardless of whether you follow that or something else. But it would really show you, is that person on your side and they want to come back together? Or do they have that harmful interest of you keeping in that same loop and being stuck? Also, if that relationship is about to fall apart because you've been doing that all the time, that's your chance to try and save it. So that's when it comes to relationships inside of a friendship. If you're noticing that you have those loops that you keep on repeating and you feel like you need a bit of help with that, feel free to contact me, whether it's in one-on-ones, in global or healing container, or mentoring. That's a bit more difficult because it's always limited in spots and currently it's full, but I don't know when you're going to be watching it, so you can always inquire. But if you need my help with that, you can always reach out. I hope you took the time to reflect on these things, and let's start our Q&A. Let's start our Q&A. If you have any questions, guys, please, this is your time. You can unmute yourself, turn on the video.
I was just typing that. Can we unmute ourselves? Yeah, my mind is like melting, but in a good way. Yeah, I found like through the reflection, I found a pattern that I thought I'd healed, but I'm actually still in it and I don't really know how to get out of it. I feel like I am helping someone to uphold their situation unconsciously because it's a childhood pattern or like early teenager, like something. So I'll give you a little backstory. So yeah, my mum was in a domestic violence situation and I was only 13 and I had to help her out of that. She had 2 babies. And I feel like since then I've attracted a lot of friends that are in that same situation and I would step into this savior role again and I keep stepping into this savior role. But I think to be the savior, they've got to be in that situation. So I get really stuck with like, should I tell them to leave or they've got to make their own decision or can I help them? And then I'm like, no, I shouldn't help them. It's not my mum anymore. Like, yeah. So I kind of get stuck in that loop. Yeah.
So now that you've noticed that, do you have any thoughts about what to do about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that something that you would like to share? Just not specifics about that person, obviously, but in terms of behavior. What are you thinking? What is your action plan there?
I'm very like conflicted because I used to cut people off when I was uncomfortable and now I don't want to do that and I like to have the hard conversations. I'm conflicted because I do want to check in on them and make sure they're okay and they're very kind towards me and caring about me. But their story hasn't changed for a long time. So another friend I did eventually cut off because it was 10 years of that. But for this friend, it's been probably around the same time, but we've gotten closer in the last few years. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I do check in on her a lot and she does vent to me a lot. And I feel like a part of me is getting something out of that, where, you know, at sometimes I have been like, you need to just like leave, or you need to just do this. And then the blocks come up, and then I'm like, where do I draw the line? Like, I'm not your therapist. Like, so yeah. And then I kind of like avoid them for a few days. And then I'm like, that either they'll reach out or I'll reach out checking in on them. So that's kind of the pattern.
Okay, so that's exactly what we were saying about trauma bonding. So this is where you're stepping away to self-regulate, because that situation is playing out in your advantage. And then so you basically, like we said with the other person, that they are blowing off steam and then they come back to center. So for you got that hit, and then you take some time off, and then you come back to center, and then you come back into the same dynamics.
Yeah.
Well, understanding it is the most important thing, because now when your brain heard your own words say that, things can change, right? So it's awesome. It's awesome that you recognized it.
It's good, but I still feel like I don't know what to do. Yeah.
Would anyone else want to say anything before I comment? Any ideas? Yeah. Come online. Oh, turn off your mic. Christy, come join us in the conversation.
Yes, very timely discussion for me, especially after extracting out of a trauma bond relationship. It was pretty heavy, and I realize now, after stepping away from that, how much lighter I am. I am not so much in my victim mode anymore. I'm so much more creative, and it's been quite the eye opener.
Can I ask Christy, like, did you have a friend or therapist supporting you that helped you to get out of that pattern, or was it just you just had an inner realization?
Actually, it was really funny how it all happened. It was the relationship I'd been distancing myself more and more, and she knew that I was pulling away, so she kept latching on more and more, and it was very draining and destructive. And
that's your sign.
Yes. And I woke up one morning and I said to the universe, I would just like a way out of this relationship, gently and calmly, because this is unsustainable. And about 3 hours later, yeah, it kind of opened up to a discussion, and she attacked, and I just said, you know what, I think I'm done, so good luck. And that was the end of that.
It's so interesting. I've seen it so much in the last 2 weeks in my sessions. People came with those stories, and that's like the common denominator. When you see that somebody is draining you, when you pull back, they start chasing you. And when they feel that you're done, they start attacking you.
Personally attacking and horrifically attacking. It was wow.
You don't even know, yeah, well, you know, but sometimes we can't even expect, we don't even know where it's coming from.
No.
How all of a sudden you became the person who did something wrong.
Yeah.
Just by wanting your peace or yourself for yourself.
Yeah.
It's crazy, huh?
Crazy. Thank you, universe.
Mel, do you have any other thoughts?
I feel like maybe it's a toxic relationship rather than me thinking they're in a toxic relationship and I'm trying to save them, possibly. Like the actual relationship with them is toxic. The person I'm trying to help.
Well, you see, if they're a person who's tending to have toxic relationships, it's not only their relationship with another person, it's also yours with them, because for that person, their tendency is to have toxic relationships, right? And then everybody that they attract most likely will be playing out the same scenario of the trauma bond. And they will be the person who's attacking and venting to everyone else, to you, to them, and then to you about them, and because they're playing out their addiction.
Yep.
As an addiction expert, you would know. You know how it works, right? So we can shift an addiction. We can be addicted to alcohol, we can be addicted to drugs, to anything like that that's clear and known to be addictive, and then to shift it into an addiction to a trauma bond, to a toxic relationship. To break it, to change it, we can either leave or we can shift ourselves. That's why what I said before with the container and energy, that's how we do it. Either we start filling up ourselves with things that are good for us, and then we won't have any time and any energy to give to a trauma bond, because we bring ourselves energetically from needing that to secure and full of our truest expression, and then there's just no entertaining that. And in most cases, you don't need to say I'm done. Just like Christy said, she didn't want it anymore, and then the person had their own little tantrum and disappeared. Because they feel the shift. I will bring it back to an energetic talk. That's when you do that, when you come to that conclusion and something in you have that breakthrough in yourself, you shift to a different frequency. When there's a mismatch, that person feels like you tore a limb off, like a piece of them is missing, and they start to freak out. And then eventually you just go your separate ways. So in most cases, whether you will find a new way and create a relationship in a healthy way, or you will separate, in both cases, it starts with you. It's not about having a conversation. It's about reaching that place within when there's a mismatch. And then you can see, then the communication comes into play, and you can see, are they catching up? Did that shift in your frequency now made them make changes in their life and they can meet you there? Or are they just taking themselves out? Does it make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
My pleasure. Alexa, would you like to say anything?
Yes, I would. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I've had to hit the road again on my way down to Sydney. Yeah, well, I love this topic because this has definitely come up for me, and I love my partner dearly because he does call me out on it sometimes when like there was a situation almost a year ago now, but it went on for a few months, and there was quite a lot of people involved, and throughout these few months it was almost always the topic of conversation, and it was a lot of I guess, well, because it feels gossipy, and there were a few of us that were very mindful of that, but then there were certain people that like just kept going on about the same things. And interesting talking about the friends, like the relationship with the friends, because at this time I had a friend who was involved, but she wasn't super close to the situation, but she was a little bit. And she was one of the ones out of everyone that was going on and on and on and on. And I guess for me, hard for me to say, to sort of like set the boundary and kind of say like, like enough's enough kind of thing. Like it's, just interesting reflecting on that in this conversation, because I remember at one point I just felt like saying to her, like, get over it, because she just kept going on about the same thing, like how she was affected for longer than anyone else. But I remember my partner kind of called me on that because I was having just a one-on-one conversation with someone that was also involved in this situation, and I got off the phone and he kind of said, like, you're just being really negative and you kind of harping on about the same thing, and it kind of needs to stop. And I'm so grateful about, and I'd love to hear, sorry Valerie, my phone's going everywhere. I'd love to hear like any insights you have on sort of, you know, we were discussing how like it's very different for men and women. Like I think there is this aspect, like for women, we do tend to talk about stuff. We tend to talk about how we feel about things. And so and also to bring into human design, I'm a self-projected projector. So being self-projected for me means that clarity on things is to speak it out. Like I have to hear my own voice. And so for me, it's like finding that balance of being able to vent and like verbalize how I feel, because I know like this being a self-projected projector resonates for me so much, because what was quite damaging to me. Balance of being able to verbalize it, that's I tend to sort of go just like one way. And then from that female perspective, because his male relationships, male to male relationships, they just don't really do that. And I was trying to get him to understand. I was like, but I don't know, for us women, we kind of do need to talk about it. But obviously, yeah, you don't want to get to a point where it's just this negative loop of, you know, the venting, and then which can often turn into the gossiping kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You said a few very interesting things, so I'll just take a note to myself. And in the meantime, anyone else, would you like to comment? Kate, you're very welcome to join the conversation, yeah? You have the human design and the polarity, yeah? Anyone else? Christy, Mel, do you want to respond?
I'm interested to know as well. I didn't think of that. Yeah, I feel like women, we do, like I see us like we're in the villages and the men are out hunting and we're sitting around talking and eating and cooking. So like
I'm
yeah,
here for the
like,
eating. Sign me up.
I feel like
Yeah.
it's quite natural. So yeah, I'd love to know that, your perspective on that, Valerie.
Okay. So with polarity and how, first of all, let's just say that, again, we all know that, but I just think that it's important to say that polarity, we're talking about masculine and feminine. Some men are more feminine. Some women are more masculine. There are women that are pushing through and not really talking and suppressing, the women that get chronic illnesses, because usually what do we see so much? Men that get prostate cancer and heart attacks because they're suppressing their emotions, right? Women don't tend to have that. Women are, when they're talking and processing, they don't have that. The things that are more feminine for women, the feminine women, they can get more like leaky gut and things like that because they're overly emotional and leaky, emotionally leaky. That's another thing that I wanted to bring up and I didn't, but it's a wonderful opportunity. When you're doing the self-reflection or you're observing what your friend is doing or somebody else or your client, you can notice when somebody is emotionally leaky. It just pours out of them, but there's never any process and resolution. It's just that cycle of being leaky because it leaves them drained.
Yeah.
It's not helpful. So if we're talking about masculine and feminine, in most cases it will be women and men. Yes, women talk. And this is also why women become the wise ones, because they are learning not just from experience, but from shared knowledge, right? We accumulate that knowledge, we process the information to come up with conclusions, resolutions. That's why we're better at leading from the back and guiding men where to go, guiding the masculine. I'm also more comfortable with talking about men and women and not masculine and feminine, because although we have that spectrum of polarity, it's still in a normal, healthy society. as we know it till now. There's still women would be mainly feminine, men would be mainly masculine. We still want to find the balance of the two, but it just looks differently. So I'll just add a few words on that, and then we can move forward into the answer. In women, usually we will have masculine and feminine, as in women are, their feminine is flow, their feminine is creativity, their feminine is their emotions. But in order to help them show in a healthy way, they need a really good masculine to support it, which is structure, which is boundaries. Because I don't know if you remember, but I said it in Global, I think, how one of the things that are really feminine in my eyes is resilience. But resilience needs a structure to hold it and to create it to begin with. Otherwise, it's just emotionally leaky. Masculine, it's basically the same things, but the masculine side of a man feeds off the creativity, either in himself or in his woman, to create structure, to build, to lead forward with that masculine energy. So there needs to be a balance, but one is taking the person forward. So that being said, yes, women come together, women talk, but this is where we want to see, is the emotion circulating and being leaky? So you have that loop that keeps feeding itself and no one else. That's usually how I talk with my hands. And I'm very visual, so I can see how energy moves, especially from sessions, because I can see these things. So that's how I describe them. If it's not clear, please ask me. Yeah. In that situation, when it's not healthy, that energy, that emotional energy keeps circulating, and it leaves the person drained, and it's also not giving anything to anyone else besides negative things. When we come together to chat, we can share our experience, and the energy is being shared. There's a co-creation, like like what happens in women's circles when each person gets the talking stick, and then you can share. And usually we can also have a conversation after and share, comment on the experience and the emotion. So there's a co-creation there. The energy is being poured into that third container, either into each other or in a group setting into that general container. What Alexa just described, I saw that she lost connection, is that when there's a group scenario and a few people are just feeding off other people, mainly herself, in that scenario. There's nothing poured into that mutual container, that mutual bowl, which is, as we said, women used to gather. They would gather around the fire, or when we do a women's circles, there's that candle or crystal in the middle or something in the middle, right? That's our space of co-creation. It's not somebody taking and somebody else is forced to give until they break. So that's on that. Is it clear? Yeah? Okay. So that's how I see it with energy. When it comes to human design, the number one thing in human design, regardless of whether you are a projector or not, every human design needs to talk, to be asked, to be addressed. There's no other way. It doesn't matter who you are in human design. You still need to verbalize things. Here she can. Welcome back. Alexa, you just got back in time to hear about the human design answer. Yeah, you're breaking up again. We can't hear you clearly. I want to stop your mic for a second so that we can respond, because we can't really hear you, but for some reason, only on your screen, I can't do that. You can mute anyone else, but not yours. Okay, I'll do my best to explain. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. It's not leaving me. It's not letting me mute. So human design. Every human design needs to speak. Can I?
You might have to kick her out. She might have to get the replay if it's.
Here, she kicked herself out. But I don't want to kick her out. It's awesome having Alexa here because she was so busy and she found the time to join us. Okay, yeah. I lost my trail of thought. Yes, we said human design, regardless of whether you're a projector or not, you still need to speak out loud. When you need to speak and you don't want to be stuck in that harmful cycle, one of the things that you can do is speak to the mirror. Another thing that's even more helpful is speak to the camera, record yourself, and then listen to yourself. That basically creates that loop for yourself internally, because you get to be the speaker, the listener, and the reflector. So you're the first party, second party, and the observer. That's how I would solve it, probably. You can also journal, but I feel like journaling is for something else. It's more when you're doing that intuitive journaling and you're writing, offloading things. Well, it can also be used for that. Yeah, you can analyze what you think, but it doesn't always lead to that, to breakthrough and getting what was said, because you didn't hear yourself speak. So I would probably record myself and then listen. Yeah. Do you have any other ideas on that? Anyone?
Yeah, with being a projector, so I have to wait for the invitation, and then I can, like, if someone's like, yes, I want your advice or whatever. So what I've done with one of my friends who's quite self-aware, we kind of always check in with each other's capacity, like, what's your capacity like today? Do you want advice? Sorry, what's your capacity like today? I'm gonna unload, and then be like, I want advice, or can you just listen? And she is someone that will actually call me out. And then, yeah, I notice if I've got other friends or people I'm becoming friends with, if I feel like they haven't opened the door, but then they start venting, I get frustrated because I'm like the classic projector, like I just want to give advice, or like I just want to help them find a solution. So yeah, but I like to checking in. Sometimes we even check in and say, do you have capacity for a voice message today, or is text better? Because some people get overwhelmed when they see a big voice message they have to listen to and they don't know what it says, and they start to panic, and then they have to find time to listen and then reply. So I think it's just nice to check in with people first before you vent or share, or yeah. Yeah.
You know, I was thinking about it a bit, because not long ago, because I've been noticing how there's a big shift nowadays, especially in the therapy world, how people talk so much about trauma healing and having that awareness towards other people and their sensitivities, and it almost like tipped to the other side, that now when people heal from certain things, they don't finalize the healing, as in they remove that thing, but then it leaves a void. And they never keep to the other side of building resilience. Because, you know, this conversation has been happening for a while now. I've seen it here and there when people say, you know, in the past we used to deal with wars, we used to deal with starvation, and now people can't even deal with a text message. So it's sort of, there's this adaptivity towards our situation right now, and that yes, we have the privilege to be more sensitive because we're not in the middle of war, at least not an evident one. So there's that conversation of how do we find and manage at any point of where we're at that the balance between being really respectful, sensitive, and caring about ourselves, our needs, and other people's needs, but also at the same time, how do we recognize that if we need a lot of rules? Yeah. So if we're noticing when we're checking in with ourselves and it's okay to recognize as well that that's my capacity. That's where it is. But if we're noticing that there's a lot of requirements to maintain our balance and capacity, then maybe we need to do more work on really growing that container, or to work on the resilience of its boundaries and walls. And I was thinking about that not in relation to one person, somebody, but more in relation to being so much in those settings, like get-togethers of therapists, of practitioners in that space. And I can see that there are a lot of people nowadays that you can see that those are the people that are meant to lead others, but they break so easily, but they sell it as vulnerability. But vulnerability has a time and place, and it also needs a resilient container, both for you and for the listener, and especially if you're the practitioner. Yeah, and I'm not talking about hiding it, suppressing it. It's more about, my pleasure, thank you. It's more about making sure that you actually build the resilience. Yeah, you just reminded me that with saying that. But as I say that, I also keep in mind that what you said is that you have that need because you're a projector. And I know I have a partner who's a projector. It really is like that. You are by default more sensitive, and it has to be taken into account. So when somebody like me, when an MG analyzes it, if I will look at it through my eyes, it would be, yeah, it's good to check in every now and then, not too much, but what's the problem? Just move forward, keep pushing, especially not a generator and MG, like I'm also jumping in leaps, yeah? A projector does need the time. They do need that. And I think that it's actually a very important conversation when we're looking at it through the human design lens. When you're stepping into a relationship, whether it's romantic or friendship or collaboration at work with a projector, you have to keep that in mind, because as resilient as they can get, if they will try to push like generators or MGs, they will be drained. And there's no going around it in any way. Like it's as important for you guys to build resilience, probably even more than anyone else. But you also need to be in respectful relationships. And it's just a fact that for you to build resilience will be harder than for a generator or an MG. It's not like there's no reason to try and be all, pretty about it. And it is harder for you than for somebody else. So you want to be respected in your process and held properly. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Alexa, you missed the whole thing. You'll have to watch the recording.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll definitely catch the replay. I missed almost everything after after I asked that. But yeah, and it was just interesting. I just also wanted to say it was interesting to reflect on yeah, like I've definitely learned a lot from that situation because I've really never been one. I've never been one of those girls that sits around with other girls and gossips, and like I've never really been interested in that. I don't like the energy of that, but I could see in this situation how that was inadvertently happening, because yeah, it was like things were kind of spreading like wildfire because there was so many of us involved in the situation and talking about it. And but it was interesting also to reflect on, well, why am I stepping into that behavior? And for me, the theme is like truth and honesty and injustice. And because this situation, this person was telling lies about people, myself included, and it felt like an injustice. And so it was just interesting to reflect on that too, because for me, like to be part of that behavior is not, it is sort of out of character. But then to know like that is sort of like a sore point for me when I feel like there's injustice or someone's being dishonest.
Yeah. And I can definitely relate to that. But it's still a trap.
Yeah.
Because it's still a theme.
Yeah.
Because if you as an individual, you care about truth and honesty, you can do the same thing on that theme. You can either point to yourself and say, I care about truth and honesty, so I'm going to live my life with integrity. I'm going to pour my energy into that, in my actions, in my choices, in my communication. Or when it's leaky and the boundaries are a bit off, which always the boundaries are a bit off when it comes to our theme, I'm going to entertain that because it's like that fight. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of playing around with that a few years back, and I could see how, yeah, when you're entertaining the fight, it doesn't actually lead to results. It keeps you stuck in the fight. But it doesn't matter what the fight is about. It's still a loop of fighting is not as beneficial as pouring into yourself, growing that, and when it overflows, you can give everyone around because you have so much to give. We just justify to ourselves when the theme really clicks with us. And I think we all have done it, whether it has to do with our belief systems around, whether it's politics, whether it's health, whether it's parenting. We can always say, yeah, it's not good to do that, but on this subject, it's justified. No subject is different because it does. I know that there's this idea that some people are open-minded and some people are not. None of us is open-minded at all, ever. We're all minded in a certain way. We have a certain opinion, whether it's mainstream, alternative, whether it's this or that, we all have a certain opinion. But the difference is that some people have an opinion and they think that everybody should submit to them, and other people have an opinion, but they are also aware of each and every other human's sovereignty and choice. So you have people that are saying, I am right, you are wrong. And there are people that are saying, I am right, you are wrong, but I respect your right to think differently, even if I think that you're so wrong and you're harming everyone or you're harming yourself or whatever it is. That's the difference. There's no such thing as open-minded because we are people in a biological body with a dual mind. We have an opinion unless somebody psychologically breaks us. If we don't have an opinion, something is wrong there. We don't have a sense of self, which is basically a really tricky place to be at for a practitioner. That, girls. Because you have your opinion, but you still have to remain neutral. Kate, before I finish, is there anything that you would like to ask or bring into the space?
Thanks, Valerie. Actually, I've been sort of reflecting on the energy of it as well. You know, when you were sharing that, the example of where you might talk into a mirror and the desire to speak something to process versus speak something for that exchange of gossip or other things. Like the energy of that is very different. And I feel it a lot in my body. Like I know when I'm really busy and heightened and I need to get something out and da-da-da-da-da and I'm venting versus actually wanting to stay in that place of understanding more. So I don't know, I was just sort of reflecting on that, how actually the body sometimes can actually show you too what's driving an exchange, you know?
Absolutely.
Mm.
And also on that, that's actually a very interesting point when you're talking about the energy of doing that when you're talking to the mirror. You can actually do both when you're talking to yourself as well, but just, you're welcome, Alexa. See you soon. You can vent to yourself endlessly versus you can just share something with yourself to hear yourself and it clicks. So you can do both things when it's directed towards yourself as well. But the difference is that there's no other person. So if you're doing that to another person, to a friend, you're harming the relationship. If you have that situation with a practitioner, there's a hierarchy and you can be damaged. Or if you're the practitioner, you can damage. But when you're doing that to yourself, it's, even if it's harmful and you keep cycling and circling in this loop, it's not the same still, because it's not targeted towards someone. And at some point you will get tired because there's no recipient. With addiction, you know, there's something that's playing into the addiction. We're abusing something, a habit, a person, a substance. If you're doing it with yourself, there's nothing to abuse, and then at some point it just runs out of its energy. The potency just, it just kind of, you know, there's this momentum when the energy rises, and then it's like, and that's it. It becomes boring.
Yeah.
Because it's not entertaining an addiction, so it becomes boring. Eventually, the evaluation is always the same. Is your life moving forward, or are you stuck? Is your life getting better and better, or it's not? It's very simple. Eventually, it doesn't matter what you do. Is it really complicated? Is it really simple? Is it... Also, we were talking about, Mel, you asked Christy before if she moved past something with a help of a practitioner or not. You don't always need that. It's about your capacity, and your capacity is not always about your resilience and what you built till now. It's also about your life circumstances, because even if you have a big capacity, but life is even bigger right now because you have kids and you have a partner and you have so much work, it's still, you don't have enough capacity for that, regardless of how big it is. Maybe you need assistance there. And the other thing is, it has to do with your processing pattern. Some people, just like me, for instance, I always need another person. It's just who I am. When I'm creating, I'm always collaborating and I'm doing whatever you guys ask me to do. It's not coming from me. I'm always in this mutual collaboration, co-creation state. But there are other people, and also I wanted to say, and also when I'm in a bad place, I will tend to talk to others and get support from others. But there are other people that are really intrinsically motivated and intrinsically focused. So for them, whether it's positive or negative, they go within to get answers and then they come out. Does it make sense? It's just about your pattern. Who are you?
Yeah.
Are you a person who wants to be with others and do with others, or with yourself?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so, so much. Loved seeing you all and hearing you all, and thank you for listening. And please write to me and tell me which other behaviors are you noticing in yourself and in others that are keeping people stuck. Because then I will be able to create a whole series for you of behaviors that are harmful and how to resolve them.
Okay.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Val.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.